Hi, Avinav. Thanks for joining us. Help me out in understanding what is the recent judgment about Harish Rana has gone for this passive euthanasia. So what I will do is that I will try to ask you some simple basic question which will help us to understand this complete complex matter.
Sure,
Okay.
sir.
Avinav, in simple sense, can you explain me what he means this active and passive euthanasia, which is again a legal term? So please help me out in understanding.
So basically, euthanasia itself, the root words is a Greek word, which is you, good, and thanatos, which is death. So it is basically good death that it is given to a patient, and it's referred to those instances where the patient is in a vegetative state, who is not able to support himself, he's on a life support, and then the hospital gives him a death. And in that, the active would mean that he is given lethal injection or drugs to actively take away his life, and passive would mean that his medical treatments are withdrawn, like the life support or the feeding tubes.
Right. So, and how Abhinav is being euthanasia being played in the other country? That means how they perceive this complete issue.
A worldwide majority, active euthanasia is not allowed. It is illegal. And when it comes to passive euthanasia, there is an equal divide between countries which have made laws on it, and some countries which have not made laws on it. So it is an equal divide. In India, passive euthanasia has been given guidelines, so it is allowed as per our Supreme Court.
Fantastic. And while reading this, I realized that there is a term called living will also. What that mean, Abhinav?
So living will basically means advanced directives that a person can create when he is alive. So this is the similar as a will. In this, the person can have two witnesses and a notary, and he can create an advanced directive on what is supposed to be done by the hospital in case he loses his ability to give consent or he is in a vegetative state.
But drawing a living will, that means a person will met with an accident like this where he is going to result over this. Will he be in a sound mind to make that type of will?
So, in that aspect, the living will itself is made in a normal circumstance where he is not met with an accident and he is perfectly fine. This is similar to a normal will that a person makes, that after his death, his estates can be transferred to such a person.
Right. So Abhinav, I think in the present scenario, if someone is buying a car insurance or something like this, he should, develop a will like this, right? That's what
Yes.
you're suggesting. Perfect. And Abhinav, also throw me some light. I get confused with this Article 21, which gives you right to live, right? And similarly, we have the right to die also. Is that being covered in Article 21?
So the passive euthanasia, the legal principle of it comes from Article 21 with the interpretation of right to life, that everyone has a right to life. Coming to a little bit of the development of the law, in P. Ratiram case of 1994, they allowed for right to die in the similar way that a person can choose to speak or not to speak. But in subsequent cases, they overruled it and established that the person does not have a right to die, but they have a right to die with dignity, which was introduced by the case of Jian Kaur as well as Aruna Schanberg. And Aruna Schanberg was the first case where they allowed passive euthanasia in that particular case. And subsequently, in the year of 2018, the Common Cause versus Union of India made a comprehensive guideline on how to facilitate this act of passive euthanasia.
Perfect. And what do you think, Abhinav, as a student, and you're also going to get into the legal fraternity, and in future also you're going to experience these things in case you get into litigation. So, what do you think? What can be the future of this euthanasia like of cases which India will experience in the legal field?
So finally, by the after Supreme Court has allowed and made guidelines on it, and we also have seen a case that has been applied recently with the Harish Rana case, where passive euthanasia was allowed. We may see some increase with about the cases of euthanasia, but still euthanasia is very in a nascent stage, and there should be a lot of safeguards that need to be developed for this.
Okay. So you mean to say that now this is going to develop. So it
Yes.
is just the starting point, and we are going to develop on this.
Yes.
Perfect. Right. And what is the significance this case throws? That means if you look at all the cases which has been dealt in the past and the future. So what do you think? What can be a milestone in this complete part?
So this case is basically a successful application of the guidelines which were developed in the Common Cause versus Union of India case. Here in this case, they interpreted the medical treatment which Harish Rana was receiving to keep his life to keep him alive, and they said that such withdrawal can be allowed in the case if he's in a permanent vegetative state. And this person, he met an accident in 2013, and he has been in vegetative state since. So because of the burden of the medical costs and everything, and due to him not recovering, they chose to opt for the passive euthanasia.
Right, right. And in this, all these things, what do you understand? There is a medical aspect of this, and there is a ethical aspect of this. So how this balance takes place in both of the scenario? That means, take an example like you said that medical expenses were on so higher side, but at the same time there comes from ethical ground also. So what do you think? That means how it is being balanced in this complete part?
I would say that the divide is not between medical or ethical, because even within medical and ethical, there are two opposing arguments. For coming to medical, one thing is that obviously the medical cost will reduce, and the person will not have any pain. He'll be being ridden of any pain. But secondly, it is also that our medical, knowledge that we know is still limited. There are cases in which they have developed new medicines which have allowed patients to recover from very deadly diseases. So in that aspect, by giving passive euthanasia to someone, we may deprive him of his ability to maybe recover in the future. Coming to ethical aspect, the first is, it is obviously benevolent to the patient himself, because you're ridding him of his pain, which he has been in the permanent vegetative state, and also the loss of dignity, because he has to rely on everybody for it.
Right.
But if you see the other side, it's also that by choosing, by giving the decision to the judiciary or to other people, you're stripping away his right to life itself, on decisions on his life itself, in case he is not having a living will.
Right. And Abhinav, in our legal system, we have seen once the judgment has been passed, still there are a lot of gaps which exist, right? So what do you find that after this judgment being coming, whatever gaps still will be existing in our legal system?
What I believe is the hugest gap is there is no law passed by the parliament on this. We still only have a guideline which is given by the case, but guidelines are completely different from a law passed by the parliament, because the law of the parliament incorporates a lot of things within it, like the criminal liability of the doctor himself who is performing this operation, or the passive euthanasia. It also talks about palliative care, which is basically the therapeutical care for a person to reduce his pain. Because of such guidelines allowing for passive euthanasia, the government will be stopped or given less incentive to work on this palliative care aspect.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. And what do you think this passive euthanasia creates a balance between right to life and the human dignity? It creates a balance on that?
It is still a nascent field, as I said. So, on a case-to-case basis, it certainly has its advantages, where a person has been in a vegetative state and has been suffering with a mental, physical, as well as the monetary damages. So, in that aspect, it is definitely much more merciful to allow him to die with dignity. But this should not be a clear-cut case for every such incident, and it should be deliberated with a lot of care and caution.
Right. Thank you so much, Avinav, throwing so much of clarity on this complete part,
Sure.
and our prayers with their family members. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.